Hi, Floppycatters. I'm excited to welcome back Samantha Stupak from, did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay. From PetMedella and CBH Energetics. As you know, Charlie and I recently did a bioresonance scan and then took the supplements that PetMedella for Charlie and CBH Energetics for me were recommended based on the scan. Sam's here to compare Charlie's initial scan to the second one and also my scans as well. And then we'll see what changes those supplements made. Sam, thank you and welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, I'm excited to go through your results.
I am too. I think it's fascinating how all of this works. And yes, the answers it provided last time on what was going on with Charlie's gut were just really helped me process what I had been going through those several months without answers. So thank you.
Yeah, and this type of testing really shines in those tough to figure out scenarios where it's like you might be going to your veterinarian or your doctor trying to do every blood test or x-ray or MRI to figure out what's going on. And sometimes you have to take a different point of view and looking at your health, and that's where our bioenergetic health steps in. And this type of testing can really shine because it's able to identify those hits to our bioenergetic field, those little imprints that put a nick here and a nick there, whether it's from a toxin or a stagnation or a deficiency, something like that, where traditional testing is going to miss it. So this is such a great tool in those stubborn, tough to figure out scenarios.
Yes, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I didn't bring that up in the first review so explicitly. And I think it's so important because especially gut issues, like we could be testing. I mean, my vet was like, it's probably his kidneys. That's why he's nauseated. It was not. I mean, he's eating like a horse now because his gut's repaired. So no, it wasn't the kidneys. And I almost wonder if the kidneys were affected because of the gut issues. And now the kidneys are better because, he's not drinking as much water. Anyway, it's fascinating and it gives you a lot of insight that you wouldn't have had.
And taking that step back and looking at the whole picture of someone's health is very different than looking just at one thing. If we're looking at just the kidneys or just the microbes that might be there or not there, that could be impacting the totality of someone's health. So stepping back and getting that full picture is really powerful.
Yes. Okay, let's dive in.
Let me share my screen and I will bring up Mr. Charlie first. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is Charlie's report from back in October. And I'm not
the first one.
Yep. This is the first scan. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one just because this was his first one, but I want to show you the changes he's made after you diligently worked on his diet, gave him his remedies, and worked on the information that was given to you from this first set of results. So this is in October, and then this is his most recent test from January. So look at all that blue compared to the yellow. Over here, yellow is indicative of that acute stress. It might be hot, it might be irritated. He might not be feeling that good in these specific systems of the body. But then after addressing a lot of what was found within this report, look at the power of all of those yellows that are now in the blue, because blue represents that balanced part of the body. Now, with that said, we do see a bit of regression in just a couple areas. So his urogenital system is his kidneys, bladder, reproductive organs, and then his lymphatic system down here. And if we look at his immune system, this one is for the most part the same, a slight improvement from 69% to 71%. But it's still improvement, so we'll take it. And when we see regression happen, especially in the lymphatic system, urogenital system, or any of those big detox pathways like digestion, liver, respiratory system, or skin, it's somewhat to be expected, especially from a first scan to a second scan, because if you think about the body and what we're doing when we start taking remedies and really honing in on a very specific regimen to address things that haven't potentially been addressed ever, like stagnation in a detox pathway, or heavy metals or pesticides or bacteria or parasites, whatever it might be that we're addressing through that final regimen, we're suddenly moving things in the body and dislodging things or killing off things that maybe haven't moved ever or in years So once we uproot that or kill that or flush a liver, all of a sudden what was there is now going to start working its way through the body and work its way out. And so when that happens, as it's working its way out, it might pass through the kidneys. It might pass through the lymphatic system, creating a little bit of stress and tension on its way out. Hence why you might see something like a little bit of regression here. It could also be that in the toxin section down here, there can be a new layer of toxins that then are uprooted, and we're identifying more at a surface level, which of course at that point could then also irritate some of these systems in a different way. One of the things I wanted to point out with him in his toxin section, I found it interesting because what I love to look for is patterns. If I look at a pattern from one scan to the next scan that is similar, that to me is a big indication that this is something that's very stubborn and this person or this pet needs to put more focus on. And one of them for him was the heavy metal erbium. And so that is a heavy metal that, especially if you're in an industrial area, it could be in the water, it could be in the air, but it came up twice for him now. And heavy metals can be very hard on the kidneys. So that's one thing that really jumped out at me with him. And all the other toxins that he resonated with were interestingly very similar to the same toxins you resonated with on the second scan. So whether you both are exposed to them in your environment or whether you're sharing that energy pattern, you're both resonating with some big ones. And so, and interestingly, a lot of them are from tick-borne sources or bug bite-borne sources, which can really hit that immune system hard. It can hit a lot of the different parts of the body pretty hard, and they can be a little stubborn to clear, but luckily we have the tools to work on flushing those out. Another thing I found interesting on his report, he resonated on both scans with low vitamin D. And then also, if we then go down to his hormonal imbalances here, he definitely needs vitamin or vitamin D to help with his testosterone levels, which is a new one. This was not on his first scan, but eating more sardines, eggs, liver sources are going to be a nice way for him to naturally get that vitamin D into his diet. So that's one big thing. But then also he resonated with low T4 again, which is a thyroid hormone. And one thing he resonated last time and he resonated again this time is that he's low in a lot of his good fats, like DHA, a lot of those omegas. So if he likes sardines, that would be an awesome way to help balance some of these hormones. And then, of course, just his entire body as well. And then last but not least, he also resonated last time with insulin, low insulin, and he resonated with it again this time. So this could be getting that good balance between fats, proteins, and then his carbs as well. And I don't know currently if you're supplementing with anything additional, but getting that blend between the two and maybe even like a little fiber could help. Like a pumpkin, a nice clean pumpkin could be good if you'd eat it, just to help balance this insulin level, especially with some sardines. And then, of course, protein, which is probably his main source of his food right now. So I'm just looking. One other thing I wanted to point out that I found interesting on this report is that this lymph did go down pretty drastically. And again, that's one of those main areas that it's kind of helping to clear that waste from our body. But the big thing that came up here is this ear drainage. And has he been having, or back, I guess, in January, was he having any kind of ear irritation?
His ears have been more sensitive than they had been, but no, I mean, I didn't really see drainage. However, we started working with a homeopath in the UK, and after the second remedy that we started, he had a lot of nasal drainage. So, yes.
Flushing that whole area, which is great. Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I'm thrilled about his progress and his final regimen down here. These are all homeopathic as well. So this one's really helpful for any kind of environmental type sensitivities to reduce this, because he did come up with quite a few environmentals, dust and smoke and grass and mold and pollen and shrubs and trees. So, especially as things are getting warmer right now, I wonder if he's going to be a bit more reactive. But what I do love, if you look at his previous report back in October, look how much his sensitivities have reduced.
Yes.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So it's like all that gut healing, and balancing his enzymes and things like that. This has been a nice improvement for sure.
Yes, I agree.
And then just to touch on a few of the other remedies he had come up, Lymphopar, which is fantastic for flushing and fortifying that lymphatic system, including the ear drainage. And then Renapar is a support and a fortifier for the kidneys. And then Vaxistat is helpful for cleansing any heavy metal, chemical types of toxicity from the body as well. This one might be a little bit more of a powerful formula. So it'd be one to start, once every few days and then build up to once a day.
Okay.
So any questions on his report?
I don't think so. He gets sardines, liver, and eggs, and it's up to him whether or not he wants to eat it. I use a pendulum to test what supplements he needs, and vitamin D is about once a week, because we did a mineral vitamin blood test a while ago, and he needed vitamin D then too. So I'm not surprised that that's low because it continues to be low.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you wonder too if it'll start to improve now that, and he'll actually start absorbing it now that he is more balanced in a lot of his systems as well.
Yes, and I have actually the cilantro from last time, and the pendulum swung to it today, which is interesting to me. And what has also happened is that at first it was just 2 drops, and now it's 5. So I feel like this is how I process things, but that he can handle 5 now. He couldn't handle 5, back in January, but now his system is stronger. He's doing really, really well. So that's why I think he's stronger.
Oh, for sure. And that's a great sign. I love that you intuitively know that, because a lot of animals and people, we can only tolerate a little bit when we first start a new remedy. But then as we tolerate it and are able to build up on the amounts that we can take each day, it's a sign that our body's actually adapting and flushing things more efficiently so we can tolerate more.
Yes.
Well, let's move on to your results. Let me pull them up here.
And heads up, everyone, I did so in January, I get my annual physical, or maybe it was February. I think it's been moved to February now. So I sent Sam my blood results because I had a liver value that was higher too. So it was just an opportunity to see the difference, but I asked Sam not to share that publicly.
And I'm not a blood expert, so I can see the connections, but I'm really good at bioenergetics, so we'll chat about it. But it was really neat to see the correlations with what you had going on then compared to both of these sets of results, because it definitely aligned.
Yes, I think they're like my blood versus my bioresonance scan were like 2 or 3 weeks apart. So yes, it was good timing.
Absolutely. And what's interesting here, we have your October system performance. And there's quite a few systems in the yellow and then this one in the orange. But then when we go to the January results, I'm thrilled to see that you are no longer in the orange within this endocrine system. And you've actually developed more stress in your locomotor system, which is like your joints and muscles, connective tissue, things like that. But then your body's been pretty stubborn in all these other yellow areas. They barely nudged. I think, let's see, there's just a couple that went down, and then most of them went up just a couple points. But I'm really happy to see this endocrine system improve. But I do recall, was it around this time when you sent these samples in? Were you sick again? Had you gotten a cold or flu or no?
I did in December. Yes, I did, because that's also why. Yes, I kept getting sick because I take care of my sister's kids a lot, and also just spend time with my sister and her kids, and they both go to daycare, and so that's the other thing is I have not gotten sick for maybe 2 or 3 months. And I feel like it's because I'm on the right path now. But yes, got sick all the time.
Well, and I feel like, we can, especially when we first start a new regimen, we can have things called healing reactions where it feels like we're getting sick. So that's pretty normal. But at the same time, I mean, it is at that time, it's cold and flu season, and especially hanging out with kiddos that are at daycare, it's sort of a breeding ground for someone that's going through something like trying to strengthen their system to get better. So, keeping that in mind, I would have loved to see more progress here. But then that also goes back to the thing I was saying earlier on Charlie's report is once we start moving different pathways and decongesting certain organs and addressing some of those toxins, things start to move throughout the body. And so it's not uncommon to see a second report worse than the first because of that. But overall, I can say I am really excited to at least see you get out of the orange within the endocrine system and also your immune system. In this previous report, you are in the yellow here, and now you are in the blue, which is balanced. So that's really exciting. But I wanted to point out just a couple things. One of the big factors that jumped this endocrine system up into the yellow is that while you still are showing stress in your thyroid, your thymus, pituitary, and pineal glands, all part of the endocrine system, one of the big glands that came back into balance for you is the hypothalamus. And that part of, or that gland lives in the brain. It helps us to regulate our moods. It helps to regulate certain hormones, but then it also helps to regulate body temperature. And so seeing that one come into balance, I was really excited. Have you noticed any changes with feeling hot or cold or anything like that since that one's back into balance?
I think my hot flashes have just stopped.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah. I mean, if I eat like a ton of sugar, it's like, hello, I am still here. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
But everyday stuff, no, I just went on a trip to Phoenix with my mom and my brother-in-law, and I didn't have any hot flashes at all, which was really nice because I think I'm more aware of them in public because I have to like start stripping off
Yeah.
clothes and it's embarrassing. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's huge. That's kind of a game changer for
Y-
a lot of people
yes.
that struggle with hot flashes. So yeah,
Yes.
it is showing though you have work to do in this endocrine system, which is going to be, as you get those balanced, you're going to feel, especially, you look at the thyroid, that's metabolism, that's also body temperature, that's hair, skin, and nails, that's a lot to do with all of our hormonal balances throughout the body, along with all these other hormones as well. So I'm excited to see that these are still coming up stress because that tells you you have that much better you get to feel once these come into balance.
Mm, mm, okay.
And then also another big thing here is this liver and gallbladder. Now, while it's slightly improved from your last one, barely, but it's slightly improved. But what I love here is if you look down here, here's your liver that's still showing stress, but your gallbladder has come back into balance versus your very first one. So when the gallbladder is stressed, we might feel nauseous, we might feel bloated, we might not digest our fats that well. It can bring kind of a host of different things, maybe a feeling of indigestion sometimes. And so not seeing that come up for you is also telling us we've relieved that stress. And if we go upstream a bit, your liver's next. And so once that liver comes back into balance, your energy is better, your hormones are better, your enzymes are better, everything really starts to improve. So those were just a few things that I wanted to point out in your overall system performance. But what I found shocking was your sensitivities. So yeah, let's go down and show everybody what your sensitivities were the first time, which is very manageable. A few environmentals and then a few grains. Mayo and pickles are probably pretty easy to avoid. Let me go back to this other one here, your more recent one. So it's pretty drastically increased, kind of across the board. So lots more environmentals, a lot more vegetables, ingredients, nuts and seeds. So how something like this can happen is sensitivities are very different than like an allergy. They're two different wheelhouses. And when there is overconsumption of something, when someone has a jeopardized gut lining, you can very easily develop a sensitivity to it. But I don't necessarily know if that's the case for you. It could be that as we started to address a lot of these microbes and different types of toxins that were coming up in your first report, as those release in the body, it can very easily start to disrupt your microbiome balance, creating a very delicate digestive scenario where you're going to have more of an inflammatory response if you have a lot of gut dysbiosis going on. And so, like a lot of these are very fiber rich foods. Around this time, were you feeling digestively that you were struggling with any of these, or not too bad?
I mean, no, asparagus I actually hate, so I never eat it. But all the other ones are, yeah, no. I mean, where I have problems is wheat. So,
Mhm.
it's not even on there, is it?
No, and
But it was the first time.
it was the first time. Were you really
Yeah.
conscious about avoiding it?
No, I never, no. That just makes me mad if I have to avoid something. So I don't, doesn't work with my personality. But ironically, apple cider vinegar, I had started taking apple cider vinegar pills. So, yes. And I ended up doing a juice cleanse for 5 days before that blood work that I had done. I was like, what's it called? Annual physical. And that completely changed all of my cravings.
Oh, was
And
it,
it really like cleaned things out.
were you doing veggie juice, or just a combination of different fruits and veggies?
A commercially produced one where I
Oh.
just pop open the bottle and drink it. But yeah, I bought it on Costco or something like that, but it's a juicery out of California that I got it from.
Wow, it's amazing. It's completely changed your cravings. Well, one of the things that when I was looking at this, I was like, wow, we have quite a bit of improvement with the gallbladder not showing up here anymore, but there's still stress in the liver and within this nervous system. So then it made me think, okay, that could be partially what's contributing, but then that brings me to the toxins. And this is where I was a little bit more surprised with some of the things that were coming up, because last time you had some tick-borne type bugs resonating with you. And luckily, and it was a bacteria called Borrelia last time. Luckily, that has cleared, but now you have a different slew of them coming up. So things like Babesia, which is a parasite from a bug bite, Rickettsia and Ehrlichia from a bacteria, or it's a bacteria from a bug bite. Which were the other ones? So those were the main bug bite related ones. But everything for you toxin wise was different than the first scan, which is good. That tells us your body cleared that first layer and was efficient in getting rid of it. But now what has come up are some pretty big hitters. You look at Babesia and Ehrlichia and Rickettsia, those are some pretty significant ones that can take a toll on someone's body, especially within their digestive system. Hence, creating quite an environment that could be very inflammatory when you're eating something where some of those resonating bugs already are harboring. And especially when I see something like Babesia come up, it's not uncommon to see meats and fish and shellfish type sensitivities resonate then as well, because those are in essence sort of feeding on these meats, making the parasite then stronger and you feeling maybe worse. So
Okay, interesting.
yeah, I found that very interesting. And then I found a few interesting things in your nutritional section as well. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you had a few that came up last time, again in this most recent scan, and one of them being amylase, which is the enzyme that helps you break down your carbohydrates. And so in a perfect world, you would cut down on your carbs to take that wear and tear off of your digestive system and reduce the inflammation body wide. But it doesn't sound like you like food restrictions. So that one might be kind of tough. So that one came up. And then also last time you came up with low GLA and low EPA, which are great for balancing your hormones and bringing inflammation down body wide. So anytime you see some of those repeaters come up, just like calcium came up last time as well, these are all pretty significant ones for you to keep an eye on, because that tells us, even though you're really diligent about taking your remedies and working on some of the things that we talked about from the first scan, you still have a lot in balancing out that specific nutrient or nutrients. And so calcium is going to help with so much, from everything from your bones to nerve transmission to hormones. So focusing on foods that are rich in calcium is always going to be one of the best ways to get that nutrient into your body.
Okay.
And then the last thing I wanted to touch on yours too is you can see the different hormones you came up imbalanced with. So here's one of your thyroid hormones, melatonin, bradykinin. This is one that often I see resonate with people when they have issues with blood pressure. But oftentimes, if that's not the case for someone, usually it's because they have a pretty heavy toxin load. And considering you had some of those big toxins like Rickettsia and Babesia and Ehrlichia resonate, I have a feeling that's probably playing a role in this specific hormone being imbalanced. So,
Okay. Yes, I have very low blood pressure, thank goodness.
oh, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Which goes hand in hand with some of the toxins that came up too, which I often see. Yeah. But this low CKK, this is one that came up in your last scan, and it came up again in this one, which is kind of that alert that, hey, this is a significant one that hasn't come back into balance yet. And this is sort of that sign that your digestive wall lining is probably not as strong as it should be. And maybe you're not digesting your fats as well as you should. So keeping in mind, potentially having those smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day, doing bone broth, but also then leaning into fortifying why that gut lining might be jeopardized in the first place. And so that's when we look at things that might have come up for you in your balancing regimen. Like this hepatogest powder is incredible at just decongesting the liver and the digestive system. Green tea is fantastic for your immune system, but it's also really helpful at balancing all sorts of different things, from your nervous system to your blood sugar to your heart health. It's a really great antioxidant. And then this laminaria, this one is really helpful for supporting your thyroid, which has come up multiple times now. And then the Nat Colon Clear is going to just really focus on working on that digestive system, sort of acting as that scrub brush for your colon, just to clean things out. And then the thymus life force. So your thymus is part of your endocrine system and your immune system. And it's the gland that helps to regulate your immunity. And so it's going to be doing that, but also it has some really powerful ingredients in there, like andrographis, which is sort of like a bomb going off and killing all sorts of microbes. Astragalus is a fantastic antimicrobial as well. And then last but not least is wild oregano. And wild oregano, also a complete antimicrobial, antiparasitic. But the cool thing about oregano oil is it also has, it's a great biofilm buster. So when we start to have all of these different microbes in our body, and they kind of nest together and they develop this film around them, it can be really hard to clear them and cleanse them from the body. Oregano is great at going in and basically ripping that biofilm down so some of the other herbs can get in and then kill the nest. So a lot of really great stuff going on with both of you. Really incredible insights to hopefully just kind of help you keep going on your journey to feeling better.
Yes. So what are next steps after this? You take the supplements, and then like what are your recommendations for how often to scan and that sort of stuff?
In a perfect world, you would scan, you'd get scanned, you would tweak your diet, tweak your lifestyle based on the results, take that regimen for roughly 30 to 40 days, depending on how quickly you build up on the formulas. And then once you finish that regimen, you would immediately test again and go back to back until you're feeling really good. And we've noticed that sweet spot is about 3 scans back to back.
Okay. I was going to ask, like, how long does this go on? So then once you're like stabilized or whatever, then you would just rescan if something, maybe like once or twice a year, or if something weird's going on, you're feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I have some clients that they have literally worked diligently with us early on, and they continue to this day. They stay on one of our subscription packages because they're like, I know what it feels like to feel like I did back then, and I'm just going to stay proactive and keep testing because I never want to be back there. So
Yeah.
that's some people. Then there's other folks that, yeah, if once they're feeling better, maybe they do a once or twice a year check-in, or they just test when maybe they're feeling off. And so everyone's a little bit different, but it's incredible to see how people just kind of incorporate into their lives. The people that are just like, nope, I'm all in. I'm forever going to test, which of course I love because it's such a proactive thing to do for your health and wellness.
Yes.
But then other people too, like just using it as needed for themselves or their family.
Yes. Well, thank you. This has been one of the coolest things I've ever done. And it was so rewarding to me after that first scan and talking to you to get those answers about Charlie because I was so frustrated. What is going on? And even though all the supplements that the pendulum was swinging to were digestive in nature or like probiotics, digestive enzymes, so I knew it was a GI thing, but it was nice to actually have that confirmed because I always kind of wonder, like, is this really accurate? But yes, that was really
Validation.
nice.
Validation's huge. Mhm.
And I also think that it's so valuable for someone in my position that's going through menopause or pre-menopause, whatever. Haven't had my whole year yet, but I'm close. Like being able to balance your body that way and naturally is really, really rewarding too.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
then all sorts of different points in life. Puberty can be really tough for some people. Head injuries can be tough for some people. Just the aging community, we rolled out the brain scan a number of months ago, and that's been a huge test for a lot of different people in a lot of different spaces, whether it's, mood or memory or learning disabilities. It's just been a really powerful test. Yeah.
And so is that test just like these where you're going to get that graph at the front and then it will tell you and then you take supplements based on that?
Yep, it's laid out a little bit different. It's we're testing the entire brain. So at the top of the report, you would see a picture of your overall brain, and then the next to it's the cross sections. So you'd see the internal pieces of your brain. And just like in the full scan that we just had up, we test all of those different parts of the brain and then test to see what's resonating as those major stress factors, whether it's a toxin or we're even testing deficiencies in that arena, sleep issues, and then basically how to balance it. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
this
thank you.
opportunity. Thank you for taking your time with me and Charlie and talking about all of this. Because I think that if I'm interested in your scan, this is what I want to see. Like, how does this all work? Why does it all work? And then I appreciate you doing the follow up too. So, because a lot of times it's just, it's the review and then there's nothing more. So I'm grateful for this today. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And thank you for having me on again.
You're welcome.